Search the Landfill National Day of Action was held on September 18th. Activists called for the provincial government of Manitoba and the federal government to push for a search at Prairie Green Landfill. It's suspected that 3 slain Indigenous women were murdered and dumped within this landfill. But both governments refused to carry out this search.
Yes, they are. I just saw them come back. We hitchhiked. Yes,
Hi everyone, can you hear me? Okay, thank you all so much for coming out tonight in support of the Search the Landfill National Day of Action and in solidarity with the families of the women in Winnipeg who are here with us tonight. We're going to open the evening with the Traveling Spirit Drum, who's going to lead us with the song. Sorry, you can't hear me? I was just, okay.
Hey!
Thank you so much to the Traveling Spirit Drum for opening us up this evening. Up first for this evening, we have Ellen Gabriel, who's going to start us off for this evening. Ellen?
Eko wat konorado. Ahando atatawadaswa ki winisera. Ti de unso hunsi te chinorado nana sungoya tesu. Ti oya hawinisera. Awando yukona kere. Ti oya hawinisera awando yukwat kahtu nana situacija chokena kakarako. Wat konorado nano ni nana yete distan hunsa. Ti kiawis nana kahwatono negonos. Kiawis nana skana gansat stasseran tanu kono rukwatseran. Tanu ni nana gansat stassera so oyera. Ti na kwe kono hote yung kiawis. Na kwe kono hote yung kisneros yung kiawtanu stado oni. Ti na kwe kono hota yung kiawis ti tinuarado nana gansat stassera so oyera. Tanu at kono warado sa wakwe ko ti tezawe negad. Ni gari wesa yung kuatade nene kuatire. Ne ye. Tiskano awato atatawa ni kumpra. Tanu oni nene. Kakwe kono hota yung kiawis. Nene yete nistan hota nene negonos. Nakakwa. Unong kwa sunga. Si wanto yung kwatakari tani yung kwan hiyon. Tanu ne oni nene unkwa sunga. Si nakwe kono unka. Dio, tena na kayo na sira ko, ito niyo Dio, tena na skana. Ito na wala ito. Tena ko yung hota ko yung kuaya. Ito na wala ito. O nakasu, sika nikiyo sa ko tawas nikira, sa ko ito yung patawas tan yung kanohare. Si sa ko oni na nakatsusu, ito no ko yung awake yung tinakere. Ito no oni na nakaruta su, ito no upira su, ano na raksot tawas ta hata irete. Sikta ako. Nena aksota akuk sa handa iyete. Tananoni yeti so togo nena yunis. Nena kaya na sara kowa. Yeti na warato. Yeti na warato oni nena kaya rin ni kaweraki na nakatya na kwati. O tereke na kwati. Ena ka na kwati. Tanunaka na kwati. Tanukweko na hota yun na tanyehto. Na yote. Yeti na warato oni nena yeti so togo warati weras. Ti seguro na doktorho. Na yete nistan hutsa tanu no hota wa hetka esta ke ne ko yete nistan hutsa thore wese ke nya te ko oni no hota yudio tena ka yanar karuhya ke na ko ati te tunu wara de ne yeti soto ko rati weras te no wara do oni ne yan kisota asuta ne ka karakwa tina ko no hota ya koshnieros yete nistan hutsa ka ko no hota yung kiao is na atun hets ye na Pawira, kwensu at ano kwa kutatawanan na. Siya kahooni, siya ko satste. Sinohote yung kiawis na unong kwasu yung kisota asuta na kakarakwa di tinuwarado. Di tinuwarado oni na netstuat siya jo kene kakarakwa. Si oya huwani sira wahatarihan na niyatag istahon sa. Si oya huwani sira oni. Yung waya na skana ka satstas sira kunurong kwat sira tanus ko niya tat sira. Niya tega no hoto royo tanan nagaruhya ke na kwadi. Tinawarado na netstuat siya jo kene kakarakwa. Tano nooni nene yeti sotoko. Nene yeti stokwarunyo. Nene yeti swateto na tinawasuntes. Tinawarado. So I greeted you in my language. I don't know how many of you understood, and if you did, then I hope that peace was in your mind as I was greeting all our relations. Those relations that nurture and give us strength and love, food, water, Mother Earth, the Creator, the natural life forces, the fish, the people, the medicines, the trees, the birds, the four winds, Grandmother Moon, our elder brother the Sun, and the thunderers. And I welcome the people who came here for their families. Welcome to our territory. And I hope that you will hear the words and let peace be in your minds. That we bring our minds together to help these families who have lost a loved one and who the government callously disregards.
Absolutely.
Nakasit's the boss here, so. You know, as Indigenous people, I think we're the only people on this planet that have to continuously defend our right to live on this earth. From the moment we are born, even till we die, there's so much indignities that happen to us because we talk about colonialism that is continuing, but also the genocide. If you look up the UN Declaration of Human Rights, it talks about the dignity. We are all equal in dignity and worth. And that's not the message that has been given to us by the government, all levels of government. Unless there's reconciliation money to go with it, right? That's the only time they're going to listen to us. That's the only time they started listening about murdered and missing Indigenous women is when the Native Women's Association of Canada received $5 million to do research. That's the only time they listen. We are an industry feeding thousands of employees in the government of Canada and every single province and territory. They take about 64% of the budget that is allocated for Indigenous people, and we get the crumbs. And then we are supposed to be happy with that. In the UN Declaration of Human Rights, it talks about barbarous acts. It talks about genocide. And the fact that the Premier of Manitoba refuses to respect the dignity of Indigenous women who have been murdered is a barbarous act. And I wish that people would read the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, the Murdered and Missing Indigenous Women's Report, the Royal Commission on Aboriginal Peoples. Maybe we would not be in this situation today. Because racism is a disease of the mind. We talk about, when I was a kid, I heard about anti-racism campaigns. Where are we today? We are still fighting racism at the highest levels of government and at the highest levels of society because people think it's someone else's duty to uphold and respect human rights because we are human beings. And since contact with Europeans, we have been dehumanized. We have been treated as we are less than worthy to be on this earth, this beautiful Mother Earth. And it's about time that everybody pushes into the curriculum of every child's education the Royal Commission on Aboriginal Peoples, the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. We are not getting ahead. These are just words on paper that people put down. And then we have to go to court to defend our rights. And then we have to go to the police to defend our rights who don't respect us. And then we lose more sisters. In 2004 is when the Sisters in Spirit report came out. It's been almost 20 years now, eh? And we're not any further ahead. Why? Because not only Indigenous people's human rights are not respected, we cannot control who comes into our territory. We cannot control the people who come here who come from cultures who do not know anything about Indigenous peoples and look at us as if we are less than human. It's bad enough that the Canadians who are born here see us as less than human, but I'm speaking from experience. I'm speaking from a place where everybody I can think of thinks that we get everything for free. Well, you're standing on my ancestors' territory. This is where the longhouses and cornfields were. This is where my ancestors did the round dance. They danced for the Creator. They danced for Mother Earth and the moon. They danced for the people. And there's not a single thing in this city that says this is Kanyakahaga territory. And when we think about our murdered and missing Indigenous sisters and men, we need to really do them justice by actually pushing for major changes. I was told there's an election next month in Manitoba. Kick her out. Kick her out. If she doesn't know what it's like to lose someone and have no compassion for a family that has lost someone, that's ridiculous. It's not going to be the first time in human history that a landfill was searched. But it's the continuation of this genocidal history that we see happening right across Canada. We are human beings, and we keep saying no more stolen sisters, but they still keep being taken from us. We have an opportunity today, just like we have an opportunity to do something about the climate crisis. It's someone else's problem. Well, I can tell you, when you meet these people, these family members, you have to do something. You have to be able to help them get justice for their missing loved ones, because it was a barbarous act that took them from Mother Earth, took them from this life. And Canada, Manitoba, Quebec, especially Quebec, are full of barbarians, and they commit barbarous acts continuously. And until Canada stops implementing its genocidal policies, and until Canada teaches its teachers, its police, its officials, its lawyers, its judges, its politicians, its children, on what it means to be worth something and to have dignity, we're going to have to come together like this again. And as we say in the Longhouse, let's bring our minds together and let peace be in your minds. So thank you for listening to me.
Thank you, Ellen, for your wise words, as usual. Our next speaker is Chief Kira Wilson. No, it's not Chief Kira Wilson. Our next speaker is Cambria Harris.
Hello? Can you hear me? Anin, Buju, Tansei. My name is Cambria Harris, otherwise known as West Flying Sparrow Woman. I come from Treaty 1 territory, Winnipeg, Manitoba. I am also a member of Long Plain First Nation. And I want to start off by saying miigwech and thank you to each and every one of you who took the time out of your day to personally come down here and stand in solidarity with not only my families but all families across Turtle Island in regards to missing and murdered Indigenous women, girls, and Two-Spirited. And I find it beautiful how the community gathers. And it's the community that protects us. When my family falls down, it's always you guys who come and pick us back up. When it was announced that my mother had fallen victim to a homicide, it wasn't the government who stepped up and said, we'll take care of you. It was you guys. It was you guys who said, we will dig and we will bring your mom home. And I think that's a sad statement to make, but I think it's also so beautiful. And I find strength in numbers. When the more we gather and the more that we talk about this, the more our voices will be heard. And we're slowly realizing that it is happening. But we're also realizing that this government has not and will not take families seriously, no matter how much you play their sick colonial game. And it is sad that Indigenous families have to jump through not only the justice system, but sitting upon rooms with different politicians from all levels of government, from the provincial, the municipal, the federal. And here I am standing in Montreal and Ottawa 10 months later, begging for the same thing, which is something as basic as a basic human burial, human dignity, and respect for my mother Morgan Harris and Mercedes Myron. And it breaks my heart to know that it was one man that stole 4 women's lives from us and from our community. And when this kind of thing happens, it doesn't affect just one family, it affects everybody. All the families that still do not have closure to this day over the decades and decades of watching our people, our women, our men, and our children go missing and get ripped away due to the cracks in the system that they put there. This system was made, quite literally, to break us as Indigenous people. It was made to strip us of our land, of our culture, of our language. And you're still seeing the effects of colonization today and still how it still continues. There's a direct link in everything, and I find it so vile and disgusting how history continues to repeat itself, only in a worse way every single time. My mother was a victim of not only the child welfare system, but she had fallen victim to addiction and mental illness after having all of her children whipped away from her due to the child welfare system. My house was raided. At 6 years old, I returned from a sleepover at my Aunt Crystal's to return to my house surrounded by police and garbage bags. And they didn't even let me say goodbye to my mom. That was the start of it all, and that's the start of it for a lot of Indigenous women across Canada when their children are ripped away from them. The children, our children, my sisters, my brothers, were my mom's home. Her heart was where her home was. And when her children were ripped away from her, so did her heart. So was her home. They stripped her of everything. They stripped my mom of her identity and of everything that she had ever known and that she had so badly wanted to be, and that was to be a mother. And she fought hard. And I wasn't raised in a typical way that a child was. I was raised in the child welfare system, wrongly, bouncing through homes, dozens and dozens of schools, city, town to town, while I wondered where my mother was as she struggled on the streets. As not only the child welfare system, but all levels of government watched her fail. There's not enough resources anywhere. In Winnipeg, not nowhere. My mother was mercilessly kicked to the streets over and over after receiving treatment. And they're thrown right back to the sharks. And what's so sad about this is knowing that one of those 4 women who were murdered by this serial killer remains unidentified to this day. And we can't let Buffalo woman Mashkade Bijake Ikwe remain another Jane Doe. And why? Why is this acceptable in this society, in this, what we call a Canadian society? Why is this okay to normalize the ongoing violence and genocide of Indigenous women, girls, and Two-Spirited? We watch these statistics rise over and over again, repeatedly. These statistics that this government continues to use against us and say, but it's your fault. But why aren't all levels of government being held accountable for the lack of actions and change that they are doing on their part? And with the decision to not search the landfill, not only back in December, but the fact that we're still standing here today, begging for that, has set a precedent that if any of us, any Indigenous woman, man, girl, child goes missing, this provincial government of Manitoba and the federal government of Canada has told the rest of Canada and society that it is okay to continuously murder and dispose of Indigenous women and girls and Two-Spirited, and that's what they're worth. And we're supposed to be okay with that? Indigenous women are not garbage. We are the matriarchs of our society. We are the backbones of our nation, and we always will be. And it's always been that way. We are the sacred water carriers. We carry that beautiful life within us for 9 months, and my mother did that 5 times. My youngest sibling is 5 years old. What do I tell my baby brother? What do I tell my 3-year-old daughter 10 years from now? That not only his mother's lying in a landfill, but her grandmother. How do you explain that to someone? And we know that if this were a non-Indigenous person, if this were a white person, they would search with no questions asked, because it has been done repeatedly. Not only in Toronto, where they searched for 8 months straight, but across in the States as well. And in Winnipeg, it's despicable that we have allowed an Indigenous woman named Tanya Nepanak to lie there in the Brady landfill since 2011. That's sad. The police only searched for Tanya Nepanak for 6 days, and then they called it a quit. They were supposed to search for 30. She still lies there today as the city profits off of Indigenous women's bodies in the landfill as they continue to dump trash in the surrounding areas. And I think that's so wrong. If they acknowledge that Tanya Nepanak is there, then should that not be considered a gravesite, and should these landfills not be shut down? The landfill that they acknowledge my mother's in, and Mercedes Marin, should that landfill not be shut down? But no, they profit. They profit off of our lives, and they laugh in our faces, and they treat you like children. And they think that you don't know what they're going to do, but you can't put faith in them. People keep telling me, oh, well, you're not going to do it, Cam. You're never going to reach it. Back in December, we started off with just 5 people. 5 people who came together, my family, and FNIW, who met as strangers. And we started Camp Morgan at the Brady landfill as a family from December 18th, 2022. So that's 200. We're on 274 days now where we have been camped permanently outside of a landfill, where I am re-traumatized every day as I watch garbage dump trucks drive past what is a known memorial encampment. And what I find despicable is the fact that the provincial government won't search, but they have offered to put a memorialization on top of it. What does that say? What does that say to not only Indigenous families, but the communities as well? And it says that it's okay. It hurts being an Indigenous woman in this kind of society, knowing that we have walking targets on our backs, and we're the only ones who will acknowledge it. We're the only ones that know personally about the true dangers we face, because we talk about it together, and we come together and we speak and we figure out how we're going to change that, how we're going to combat that, because no one else protects us. It's our community. And I find that horrible. I find it horrible. There should be so many more allies. There should be so many more people, and not only just the Indigenous community, it should be many others. So how can you help? Listen, acknowledge it. It's as simple as that. Everything that you've learned in school, in your history, it's all lies. Remember, this was all based off of a colonial system, and they use their words to rewrite history. But they forget that we are the original peoples of this land. And my family has a history with landfills. In 1963, my great-great-grandmother, Ava Francis, and Donald Francis had to escape Long Plain First Nation, the reserve, due to insufficient food rations provided by the federal Indian agents. Due to that, they ended up on a highway. When construction started, they were displaced. And where did they end up living? My family, quite literally, lived in a landfill in the 1960s because that was all they had. That was their home. And now what are they doing to my mother? Nearly 40 years later, they put her underneath lots of debris and trash. So I guess what I want to say is that this isn't an Indigenous people's problem. This is a societal problem. This is Canada's problem. And you can't continue to ignore it. If you choose to live in this country and continue to complain about us as Indigenous people, then why are you not doing something to help us? And I think it's sad that people watch us struggle repeatedly. And they take advantage of our traumas, and they nitpick at it, and they use it against you and your story. Indigenous women should never, ever be targeted in this country or anywhere. And men need to realize too that Indigenous women, we are sacred. We are sacred human beings. And your role is to protect your woman. Protect your families. Stand up. And it's sad that it doesn't only happen in Winnipeg. It happens across Turtle Island, everywhere, no matter where you go. It just happens that Winnipeg is the epicenter for missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. Do you guys want to know how many missing persons reports we had last year? 9,215 missing persons reports and 53 homicides. A large majority of that Indigenous women. think about that for a second. How many families were affected by that? How many families were broken and torn apart? Lives shattered forever because someone else decided to steal their loved one from them, mercilessly at that. And nobody should ever, ever, ever have to suffer through something that my mother and Mercedes and all of our families did. So I hope that one day we won't have to continue gathering like this. And that one day we can say, we got it searched, instead of standing here and begging for someone to just simply listen. So I just wanted to say Kichimigach for listening to my words, and I appreciate every single one of you, and I hope that you can take this experience and use your own voice to give that voice back to the voiceless, those women and all the lost and stolen souls, because they need you. They don't have that voice to speak for them. And it's only you guys who have the ability to give it back. And realize that your story is just as important. Every one of you have your own story, and I know that. And you guys need to start speaking about it as well. Whether it's to yourself, whether it's to your ancestors, you will find some real healing in talking about this sort of thing. Because it's not easy. Grief has a million different stages, and I've gone through all of it since December. It's been anger. It's been frustration due to the lack of accountability from all levels of government. It's been sadness. It's been depression. It's been happiness, because I find something so beautiful and strength in numbers like this. And there's no right or wrong way to grieve, and don't ever let anyone tell you that. Even if it was 20 years ago, grief lasts forever. You can't bring a person back. And that's what the world needs to realize, is that you all have a story and you all have a voice. Migach.
Thank you, Cambria, for your strong words. Our next speaker is Jordan Myron. Make some noise for Jordan.
Hello? Sorry, bear with me, my voice is like gone. My name is Jordan Myron. My spirit name is Sweetgrass Woman, and I am also from the Long Plain First Nation. Mercedes Myron was my sister. The last 10 months have been quite literal hell. Coming up here time and time again and speaking in front of you all doesn't get easier, and I shouldn't have to grieve in front of all these people. I shouldn't have to fight to get my sister's remains out of the landfill. It's not right, and people need to start stepping up and starting to do something about it and realize what's going on here. These are human remains in a garbage dump. It's not okay. And it's not okay for this to continuously happen to Indigenous women. We're human. We mean the exact same as any other race. And I just want to thank you all for showing up here today, and I want to ask you all to start using your voices to speak about this and speak about the women that are in the landfills to everyone that you know, everywhere that you go, to help us fight this fight. Thank you.
Thank you, Jordan. Our next speaker is Melissa Robinson. Make some noise for Melissa.
Hi everyone, my name is Melissa Robinson. I am also from Winnipeg, Manitoba. I am first cousins to Morgan Harris and have been in this fight to locate her since last year in May when she initially went missing. I am a proud community member of Long Plain First Nation. I am humbled to carry two spirit names, Red Bear Woman and Northern Lights Woman, and I am from the Bear Clan. So, you know, when we talk about the government trying to break us down, you know, they're trying, right? But they're not going to be successful. We are a fierce family. We are not going to stop. We know where this is going to go, and our women are going to be brought home. Not only in Winnipeg, but for all of our missing Indigenous women across Turtle Island. Just 4 weeks ago, we as a family declared September 18th as an International Day of Action, Search the Landfills, just 4 weeks ago. Look at where we're standing now. We currently, as of today, had 22 cities standing with us in solidarity. Canada has spoken. They are saying, search these landfills. Our women are not trash. No human is trash. But in the government's eyes, in the Canadian government's eyes, we seem to be. This morning we sat down again with our new Crown Indigenous Affairs Minister. We went into that meeting 8:30 this morning with lots of hope. You know, we sat down with him 5 weeks ago in Winnipeg, where he came to see us. And he told us that day, you know, we're going to do the right thing. The right thing needs to be done. And we believed him. In 5 weeks, from where we stand, we have seen no progress. We sat with him again today for them to come at us with more questions. We asked, what are these questions? Let us answer them. They had no response. So what they're trying to do, they're trying to stall. And if anything, what they're doing is they're making us more powerful. Because that word is getting out. And you see the numbers growing. You know, our camp at Brady Landfill in Winnipeg, Manitoba is named after my cousin Morgan. And like my niece said, we have been there 274 days. And we're not going anywhere. We're not going anywhere until they start that dig. Until my cousin's remains are brought home. She deserves that. Even after death, you deserve that dignity. Our family deserves that. I know Morgan is with us. I feel her. She knows we're coming for her. Right now her spirit is lost and is just waiting. I believe in my heart this work will get done, with or without the government's help. And to hell with Heather Stephenson. Quite honestly, she can kiss my ass. October 3rd, she's gone. We have a new provincial government. Both parties, Liberal and NDP, have committed to doing a search. We won't have to beg anymore. We will be outside another winter, but you know what? At least we know the work is going to eventually get done. I have all faith that these landfills will get searched. Our Morgan will come home. Miigwech.
Thank you, Melissa. Powerful words. Our next speaker is Joseph Alexander Monroe. Make some noise for Joseph.
Hello. Chief Miigwech. Thank you for inviting me to your territory. Can you hear me?
Yep.
I was gifted this flower. I was gifted this feather by Grand Chief Derek Neepanak. He came to me during the blockade that we had at Brady Landfill when Heartless Heather said that she would not support the search of the landfill right after the feasibility study saying it was possible and that we can bring our women home. The police gave us an injunction, and that Friday at 6 o'clock we were to have it down. And so Derek came, the Grand Chief. He was chief during the time when Tanya Neepanak, he was her chief when she went missing. And he was there every day for the full 6 days that during their search, and then they had quit. And he had fought tooth and nail against the police, against the government of that time. And then he heard about what had happened 11 years later with our 4 women that are in there right now. And he came down and he rushed down to the front lines. And he handed me his feather. And he told me how he took this feather across this nation. And how he used it to fight his battles. And then he came there to honor the women and to help honor the warriors that were standing on the front lines, and he handed it to me as a symbol of a torch for me to carry on that fight that he had fought. So when we're there, we're just not fighting for these women, we're fighting for all the women across this whole nation, because I hear there are so many landfills that have so many women in it. And as Ogijata, that's who we got to give our voice to, is these women. We got to let the world know that they're so important to us and that we need to bring them home. We can't leave them in a landfill. And so there is going to be no other solution other than to search. And I've had so many chiefs come up to me and say, we have machinery, we have the tools, and we have the people to do our own search if the government doesn't want to search. And I remember when the police said they wouldn't search, that they have enough to convict that serial killer. He's in jail right now. But it's such a scary thing, because I was there at the courthouse when Tina Fontaine, her murderer got off on that charge. And it was a sad day for our people across the nation to see how our police have dropped the ball. And when we stand here and look forward into the future, we can't allow that to happen anymore. So we all need to stand together and lift up our women. For they're the ones that have been attacked the most. In Winnipeg, the statistics on murdered women in the last 5 years, the only unsolved cases are the Indigenous women's cases. All the other women that, if you're non-Indigenous, your case will get solved. But if you're an Indigenous woman and you go missing, you wind up dead, the chances of solving that are very, very rare. And so that is unacceptable. It shows how the police do not put forth the energy or their time. For they were supposed to search for 6 months, but they searched for 6 days. And they said, we don't want to search no more. Because they didn't have that heart for our women. And it's not their women that are missing. And I hate saying it like that. But we shouldn't be looking at us as us and them. We are people. And we all need to live together as one people. But yet we stand separate. And so I thank you that we can come together here in your city and that we can all agree on one thing, to search the landfill.
I just wanted to explain to the families why I chose Place Canada. I think 2 years ago, I was at a demonstration and they toppled off the John A. MacDonald statue. He's the architect of the Indian Act that still continues to harm us today. That's one of the main reasons why these families have their loved ones in the landfills, and we need to search the landfills.
Oh, I gotta add something.
I just want to add something quickly. So back home in Winnipeg, we're pretty loud. You know, we're loud and we get our point across. You know, so today in Ottawa it was a little quiet. It's a little quiet here. Like I said, 22 cities across Turtle Island had their rallies today to stand in solidarity with us. I don't know if anyone has seen the lives from Winnipeg today. You know, but we may have put a red dress on a statue out there. Oh, it was of the Queen. So, you know, when we first found out of the 215 2 years ago now, we made a statement, and we made a hell of a loud statement. We pulled the Queen down. So when you guys talk about pulling statues down, two statues. We had some of our one of our Indigenous warriors, our Jolene. Shout out to Jolene. She wore that crown. So I just want to quickly say I thank you guys for coming here, for standing with us. You guys have no idea what this means to our family. You know, we just like Cambria said, you know, strength in numbers. And the more people that gather and join us in this fight, the louder we'll be. So let's take down some more statues. Our next speaker is a prayer from Grandma Shingus. She's an elder from Winnipeg. So give it up for Grandma Shingus.
I can hold it for you.
Yeah, okay. Bonjour, welcome everybody. So the family asked me to come with them to Ottawa and Montreal, and then we're going to Toronto on Thursday.
You guys can get up at some point.
As a grandmother, I pray night and day. In the mornings when I get up, when we were at the Brady landfill and Prairie Green landfill, like, you know, with the families, we did ceremony on those landfills, and you know what happened? The eagle came. But in Brady landfill, the women came there. They came and it was so peaceful, it was so calm and warm, and it was minus 42 that day. It was, and the family felt it. Everybody that was there, the First Nations, Indigenous warriors were there too, and they felt it. So before I came here on this journey, what came to me is love. Love for our people, love for our women that are in the landfill. And that's what these families have been doing, is outpour of love for their loved one all the time. I see it in them. That's what I learned from them. I learned about true love from them. So I just want to say chimigwech to them. So today in Ottawa we had that meeting, and usually they offer tobacco, and the Indigenous Service Minister offered me tobacco. And we sat in that meeting and listened. I wanted to hear an answer for the families. There was no answer that came. They said they didn't know, they had more questions. There was no commitment to to the families. Grand Chief Kathy Merrick was going to sit there in that Indigenous service office and have a sit-in until we got an answer. But when I was listening, I was holding that tobacco that the Indigenous Service Minister offered to me, and I heard the family again, because I heard them in the past over and over and over again. They're re-traumatized. So after the meeting was done, I stood up and I told him that I'm refusing your tobacco. I'm giving it back to you, because when you give tobacco, it's a receiving and giving relationship, and they didn't give that today. He didn't give that today, so I gave it back to him, and I told him to give it back when he has a commitment to search the landfill. I want to offer prayer to our Creator, Great Spirit, and God as we know Him, and to our grandfathers and our grandmothers in the four directions, and to Nokomis, Mother Earth, and to our spirit helpers. My spirit names are Sky Woman and Northern Lights Woman, and I come from the Bear Clan. My warrior spirit is Grandmother Turtle. So I come to you in prayer tonight, Creator, grandfathers, grandmothers, and I ask that you help us get answers and commitment to search the landfill for these families. I ask that you continue to give them that strength and that voice that they bring across the nation, so that they could get their loved ones out of that landfill, so that they could give them a proper burial. Saying no to that search is a broken sacred law that they're breaking. The governments, the federal government and the provincial government, they're breaking that sacred law, because our women are sacred. They're life givers, and it's only human dignity, human rights for our women to be brought home for their loved ones. That's all. So I ask Creator to hear them, and I say Chimigwech for the medicines that are here, and the drum songs that were sung, and to Ellen Gabriel for bringing voice for the families here tonight, and for everybody here, each one of you. Creator and the grandfathers and ancestors feel your love. So I say Ego say it Chimigwech. Thank you.
So we are gonna have the Traveling Spirit Drums do a closing song, and yeah. Thank you everyone for coming.
In the speech today, you mentioned when your mother fell to homicide, the government wasn't there, but it was, the community and other people that stood up. And you're slowly realizing that voices are being heard. Have you noticed that maybe the internet is playing a role in people being more connected and kind of unlearning the education that we were taught in Canadian schools?
Yeah, absolutely. I know that slowly we, as not only Indigenous peoples but as a Canadian society, schooling and education is slowly changing. So we are slowly starting to recognize not only residential schools but the child welfare system, the 60 Scoop, and missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. And I find that the internet really does play a large part in it, because we've learned throughout the years that social media can have a large influence. And with the Search the Landfill hashtag, it started out with just a few posts, and then we utilized that for all resources, and so it blew up, and now we have fully blown it into an entire movement, which we never intended to. It started off with 5 people back in Parliament Hill in December, and now it's blown across Turtle Island, and so it just goes to show how this affects every one of us, each deeply and personally, and that it's not just one Indigenous family it's happening to and affecting, it's affecting an entire nation.
Thank you so much. I remember, I believe it was at the end of last year, I remember seeing a news clip of you and your sister, speaking about your experiences, speaking about your thoughts on camera, and afterwards it was Mark Miller who kind of gave, sensitive words, thoughts and condolences, all these types of things. But what do you think when constantly we hear sympathy from politicians that can make change, but they don't follow through with these actions?
I wouldn't even call it sympathy, because it's something that they've never ever had to have gone through. Their ancestors have never had to have gone through the level of violence and normalization of genocide that has happened to Indigenous peoples. It's something that they will never ever be able to grasp, the concept of having a missing or murdered loved one. And when they sympathize with words, it's incredibly disheartening, because I have sat in these rooms repeatedly with politicians of all levels of government, from the Manitoba Premier to the Mayor Scott Gillingham to Minister Mark Miller, then the cabinet shuffle to now Minister Gary. And Minister Gary, it's the same reaffirming words saying that I'm going to do the right thing, but I won't commit, and I won't tell you when I'm going to commit or how. And I told him, I'm sick of words. I'm sick of words and being treated as a tick on a politician's agenda. And I'm sick of being re-traumatized by sitting in these rooms when it's clear that you do not value me as a human being, and that it doesn't matter what I say or do. My voice does not matter, because you are the one that will not commit to searching and retrieving my missing loved one. So I guess to that I want to say is that all levels of government need to start being held accountable for their lack of action on their parts, because they chalk it up to jurisdiction, but if you look at the jurisdiction, then they're breaking their own laws in terms of criminal codes in regards to a dead body, where they're acknowledging that the body's in the landfill, but now they're not going to do anything about it. And then they're violating, not only that, they're violating my mother's treaty rights and my treaty rights by refusing to give me the right to give my mother a proper burial and bring her home. And that is written in the treaties, and they are violating that law, and they need to be held accountable for that.
And lastly, I just want to ask, beyond attending events like this today, what can Canadians do to push for change and provide support?
Push for change and provide support. I would say it starts with our younger generations, and we need to remember that when we're no longer here on this earth, it's our children, not only just our Indigenous children, but it'll be your children too, that will have to fight this fight together. And do you want your children to be divided amongst Indigenous people and whatever other nations, or do you want them to stand together and make this world a better place? Because we all want a better world for our children, right, and our younger generations. But how do we make that happen when there's a divide because politics come into play? And I think it's so sad that they're turning Indigenous women's lives into a political game, and it's not right at all.
Thank you so much. Is there anything that I didn't ask that you want to share?
Search the landfill!
Thank you so much for your time.